July 31st, 2024 PSTA Board meeting to order. Commissioner Scott, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to entertain a motion to allow Commissioners Schulman, Saraki, and Eggers to participate in today's meeting by Zoom.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go on to our awards and recognition and welcome our newest board member, Mr. Robert Walker from the City of Dunedin. And Mr. Walker is replacing Commissioner Jeff Gall. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. All right, and then next we have awards to celebrate. And earlier this month, PSTA got some fantastic news from the U.S. Department of Transportation that Debbie Laos, our CFO, will highlight for us. Good morning, Debbie.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am so pleased to present this to you. On July 9th, the U.S. DOT Federal Transit Administration made an award to PSTA of $27.8 million. It is the largest competitive grant award in PSTA's history. It was also the largest in Florida for this particular funding award time. At a press conference on that very same day, U.S. DOT Deputy Secretary Polly Trottenberg announced the award and had some amazing things to say about our application.
I'm here with some good news today. As you heard from Elizabeth, today we are rolling out the latest round of our bus grants, both our low and no emission grants and our bus and bus facilities grants. We're announcing $1.5 billion of awards in 117 projects all over the country. And St. Petersburg, you have won a $27.8 million grant to purchase 12 electric buses, 4 hybrid buses, 12 depot chargers, and equipment. This is the first grant that you all have won through this program, and I think it's going to allow a whole bunch of new routes in Pinellas County. You can also use some of those dollars for workforce development to ensure that your transit workforce can maintain and operate these buses. It's going to be replacing a bunch of older diesel buses that the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority has in its inventory. The new buses will be cleaner and they will be quieter and hopefully have longer running times and be safer as well. I want to congratulate PSTA and CEO Brad Miller. They did a wonderful job in applying for this grant. And just so you all know, we got a total around the country of $9 billion in requests. So it was very competitive. And Pinellas County and St. Petersburg, you had one of the best applications. So with that, good news, congratulations.
What a great clip, and you know, this application was a joint effort amongst many people here at PSTA. Otherwise, Henry Lukasik and his maintenance team, certainly with their technical expertise, made the case that we are worthy of this award. Jacob Labutka and the planning team provided a lot of data and information that went into the application. Amanda Boyson from our communication team put together the narrative that made this such a wonderful case for the U.S. DOT to make this award. In addition, the highly motivated Al Burns and the procurement team led the state in the procurement for electric buses. And this was really a collaborative effort as well between PSTA and putting in the application, and was able to allow some other transit authorities in the state of Florida to also win some awards. And last but not least, thank you to Chair Driscoll, to our federal lobbyist from Vanscoy, Harry Glenn, of course our CEO, Brad Miller, and Congresswoman Castor, and their vocal advocacy and hard work making this a reality. So we appreciate all that everyone has done, and before I pass it off to Brad, I think this deserves a round of applause. Now, I'm going to pass it back to Brad because he has some late-breaking news on yet another award.
Thank you, Debbie. As Debbie just mentioned about winning the competitive grant award this year, we found out that the US DOT would give additional points if transit systems would collaborate with other transit systems to buy the same kind of bus with the grant dollars. And so Henry Lukasik and Al really worked really hard to talk to the other folks around the state of Florida, because we all buy buses together. And we worked very closely with Orlando and Gainesville, Florida, because they buy very similar buses to ours. And both Orlando, Gainesville, and PSA all got about the same amount of major awards. So that just shows how great it is to collaborate together. And I'm very honored. I was very excited earlier this week to learn that PSTA has won for the second year in a row a National Transit Award for collaboration. This time, as you recall, last year, we won this thing with this big banner behind my head, the Outstanding Public Transportation System of the Year Award. And that award was for our whole organization, for the employees, for the board, for our whole organization. And I really am happy about this award. This is called the Inclusive Collaboration Award, given out by APTA each year. And this award recognizes a transit system and private sector partners that have done something outstanding. And in this case, it's for the Sunrunner project. We are winning this award along with a company called Jones Worley, which is a marketing firm we used, and H.W. Lochner, which is our engineer of record. I think John Kintney from Lochner is with us in the audience, and Cynthia Parks from Jones Worley, maybe, no, Al says she's not here. But they have been fantastic partners through us. And I think that I'm just really proud that we work really hard with our private sector partners, as you'll hear throughout this meeting, all the time to bring successful projects together. And I think this is what this award does. We will be collecting this award in September at the APTA conference, but it's fantastic news. And so I think we should about that too.
All right,
Yeah. that's it.
thank you.
Okay.
It's exciting
here
to
was-
see yet another award from APTA. That's wonderful. And I love that it is in regard to collaboration, because that's one of the things that PSTA is known for doing best. And so that's really exciting. In terms of the funding, you know, one of my favorite elements of this is that there is funding included for workforce development. And I think we can all agree that that's something that we can't get enough help on right now in Pinellas County at a time when we want to make sure that more people have opportunities for great jobs that really pay the bills. This is going to help us get there and really help to even train our existing staff on how to operate and maintain these wonderful buses that we'll be getting. So it's really quite a meaningful amount of funding that we're getting, but what it means for the community is even bigger to me. So, all right, good. Wonderful when we can start off with some awards.
Yep.
And
good to
now we will go to public comment on consent agenda items or any items that are not on the agenda. Did we have any public comment under that category? Okay, great. We'll go ahead and close public comment. And if you do wish to speak on any item that is on the agenda, if you could please fill out a green card and hand it to the staff sitting at the front table. The speakers will be recognized in the order in which cards are received as those items are brought up. Next, we have the consent agenda. Do we have any items from the consent agenda that any board member wishes to pull? Commissioner Petrillo?
I'd like to pull item 4E.
Okay. Item 4E.
Why can't I? Which one is that? Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. Any other items? Okay, we'll do that one separately then, and so with that,
Do you want to take a motion on the other?
oh, I'm sorry, do we need to
Motion
do
for
them?
the other ones, and then we'll take that one up.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so the remaining items on the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Could we please open the voting system?
It's
I
not
don't have
popping
an
up.
option to vote.
It's not working. I'll just-
Okay,
Okay, I can,
for the consent agenda, can we just do a voice vote?
that's fine.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who was on Zoom that said no? I didn't catch that. Okay.
Nobody said
So- Oh,
Maybe I'll say
oh, they
yes.
said aye, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
All right, thank you, the motion carries. And so now separately, we will take up item 4E, the homeless emergency project, and I believe Bonnie Epstein is going to present that one.
Mayor Petrillo, did you have a question about it specifically?
Yeah, there was a lot of acronyms and I didn't know what, it was just, so I would like a better explanation of exactly what it is that we're voting on here. So I would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Good morning. I'm Bonnie Epstein, Director of Mobility. So the action item is for a contract with the Homeless Emergency Project to receive funds that we receive from the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged as a pass-through. So we receive grant funding from the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged, trip and equipment dollars, about $4.7 million. We use those funds to pay for our TD bus passes, TD late shift, our TD door-to-door service, but we also use that funding to cover nonprofit organizations that give rides to their transportation disadvantaged clients. So every year, the local coordinating board, so that's at the county level, determines which nonprofits are going to receive funding through the trip and equipment grant. And so the local coordinating board this year has already approved the homeless emergency project to receive funding. I can go through the contract amount, or if that, anything that will answer any questions.
And how much is allocated to bus fares?
So the total trip and equipment grant is $4.7 million. So if we, I think it's a few million that we're setting aside for the TD bus service, as well as TD door-to-door. It's another TD service we provide.
All right, thank you. And I just want to point out in the summary here, it does say that the Finance Committee reviewed this item and unanimously recommended approval. I'm wondering if there is anyone from the Finance Committee who would like to comment on this item? And those on Zoom, I am trying to pay attention. If you do raise your hand, I want to make sure you get recognized. So, all right.
Maybe I can just add, it is confusing with all the acronyms, and I apologize for that. We get these grant funds that are allocated to every county in the state of Florida from the state. This Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged provides this funding. And then for as long as I've been here, the the local coordinating board, which is actually overseen by Ford Pinellas, and I think Patty Reed is the chair of the local coordinating board, each year approves some of the funds going to nonprofits in Pinellas, and like HEP, they can bill for trips that they provide to their clients again, and get reimbursed for their expenses. It probably won't be $2.2 million, which is this, it'll just be up to that. Oh, that's the max that they can bill over the 4-year period. And then Neighborly Care Network is another nonprofit, ARC.
Park, yeah, Ark and Park.
Are the other ones that we already do this with.
Right.
All right. Any other questions?
I appreciate you taking the time to explain. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, and one thing that we had discussed about this, because I had questions on it, and I had a one-on-one meeting, was that these funds are specific, can only be used for this specific. Because I was like, why are we taking from one and doing this? I didn't understand the movement of the money. But these funds are designated specifically for this part of the program. That is something, correct? Did you want to?
Yeah.
Because that was
yeah.
an important point that really changed what I told you, how I understood where the money went to and how come.
Yeah, I mean, the funds are only for riders that qualify for transportation disadvantaged. And yes, at the local coordinating board or Ford Pinellas level, they approve these nonprofits to receive funding from the CTD or Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged.
They can't be used for any of the other ones.
All right, thank you. Seeing that there's no further request for discussion, I'll entertain a motion for approval of item 4E.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this item. If we could, please make an attempt to open the voting machine. And we have it. If everyone could please cast your votes. That's wonderful. And then for those who are on Zoom, Commissioner Eggers, may we have your vote, please?
Aye.
Commissioner Schulman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Saraki.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. Next, we have our committee updates. And first, we're going to receive our track update from Mark O'Hara, and then I will have our Ford Pinellas report after that. Good morning, it's Mark in person. Good
Yes,
morning.
Mark is in person today. He just got off the plane from Buffalo. Good morning, Chair Driscoll, Mr. Brad Miller, and esteemed board members. Track met virtually on Thursday, July 23rd of this year. The committee participated in a focus group for PSTA Neighborhood Engagement Project, which is working to improve and maximize the agency's community engagement. The project is being done with a particular focus of engaging minority and digitally disadvantaged demographics, particularly to promote the Transportation Disadvantaged Program. This grant-funded project will help teach more of the public about the state's TD program, which allows lower-income people to get significantly reduced cost monthly bus passes. Inclusivity LLC conducted the focus group, and the committee members were eager to participate and now look forward to playing a role in helping PSTA get more people signed up for the TD program. Since the focus exercise was quite lengthy, this was the only item we discussed this month. Our next meeting will be held here at PSTA on August 20th, 2024 at 4 p.m. And as always, you're all welcome to attend. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mark? All right, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Next, for the Ford Pinellas report, the board met on July 10th, 2024. The board approved opening a public comment period for the 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan. The board approved the Pinellas Planning Council budget and a reduction of the millage rate. They also approved funding to advance the Gateway Master Plan recommendations. The board received the presentation on PSTA's FY25 operating budget that the PSTA board has received, including the fare changes, more electric and hybrid buses, and the new services that are being proposed. The next regular Forward Pinellas Board meeting will be held on September 11th, 2024, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. No? Okay, and Commissioner Reed, the LTV did not meet since our last meeting?
No, we meet in 2 weeks, I think.
Okay.
We meet
So
in
we'll get
August.
that update next
Yes.
month. Fantastic, thank you. Next, we'll go on to our information items, and for item 6A, this is the FY '25 service improvements. But before we begin and go on to the action items, PSTA's Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officer, Darden Rice, will outline the many service improvements within the proposed 2025 PSTA budget. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairperson Driscoll and esteemed members of the board. I'm Darden Rice. I'm our Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officer. And today I present you our fiscal year 2025 planned service enhancements. I have to say, it is really so exciting to present you these new service concepts. And whether it's delivering premium service along our key corridors, moving waterborne transportation forward, or looking at a whole new service from the St. Pete Clearwater Airport to the beaches, these new directions that take us forward offer opportunities for growth, and they're positive changes that position transit to support economic development even more. And that's good for all of us. These new services also reflect workshop conversations, feedback with you, insights, and suggestions from board members. So thank you for helping to generate many of these ideas. The planning team enjoys working closely with you, other agencies, and responding to community stakeholders as we continue to improve our service. And we want to keep up this excellent level of service for riders and taxpayers alike as we plan for fiscal year '25. You will notice that for our plans for the fiscal year 2025 budget, we are not proposing service reductions as we did last year. Just a reminder, my presentation today is informational and does not require a vote from you, but it is certainly contingent upon the direction from the board reflected in today's budget decisions. Debbie Leos, our CFO, will present to you a balanced budget proposal that will cover these services. We will hear from her next on the agenda. The goals for the new services. So these goals all reflect strategic expansions of service by investing in successful core routes, such as the 34th Street South corridor and the Sunrunner weekend nighttime service. There is a focus on tourism with waterborne transit ferry services and the PIE St. Pete Clearwater Airport service to the beaches. These goals are also aligned with the community bus plan, and later this fall in October, we will present to the board the community bus plan, and will continue to focus on increasing ridership by investing in our main corridors. So, the 34th Street Spark service. We are branding this new premium service along the 34th Street corridor as the Spark. What makes up premium service? It's a number of things. It's increased frequency. It's improved passenger experience with signage, with digital arrival time displays, branded shelters. We're also looking perhaps at branded totems. And the Spark service will connect to the Sunrunner and Grand Central District connections. The buses along the Spark service corridor will also be all-electric buses. And you see at the bottom there, just a quick run over of the financials. And we hope to start the service by June 2025. Clearwater Ferry, we are still going through the RFP process, and we are on track to present a contract to the board at our next August board meeting. Note that the Clearwater Beach Marina will be under construction for a year. There have been some talks and plans about additional services for marina workers to park in downtown Clearwater and take the boat to get to work. That will be a separate service from this particular service that we're contracting for. Cross Bay Ferry. The current contract runs through October 2025. But starting on October 1st will actually be a full-year service that starts this year. As you know, Hillsborough County currently manages this service. However, Hillsborough County has approached PSTA, and Hillsborough County government, the City of St. Petersburg, and the City of Tampa have asked PSTA to manage the contract. We are working on that now, and we'll be presenting you updates as that continues. And perhaps for some of you, the most exciting part of this, potential PIE service to the beaches. We are at this point in time looking at proposing a privatized service so that the right types of vehicles can be quickly acquired so that we can run this service sooner rather than later. We're looking at an on-demand type of service that would be coordinated through text messaging, an on-demand service to riders, 7 days a week service. This would be complementing the major airline that services PIE, and that's Allegiant Airlines. And this proposed service would be supported by PSTA operating funds, perhaps some mixture of premium fares. FDOT has indicated interest in supporting this with a service development grant, and PSTA officials will be meeting with airport officials within the next few days to start these conversations. We're also looking at enhanced Sunrunner frequency, and thanks to support from the City of St. Petersburg, they have offered to help with the operating budget to extend the weekend frequency service so that we would be able to also provide 15-minute frequency on the weekends on Friday and Saturday nights from 8 p.m. to midnight. We anticipate that this will generate higher ridership, and significantly, this will be timed with building our new downtown St. Petersburg Sunrunner station. So in summary, we are, like I said, we're very excited to present you this view of these new services. It's always my goal to present you plans that reflect a quality of planning and ideas that are befitting of being the #1 transit agency in the country. And we didn't get there by accident. We get there by working closely with you, our partners, members of the public, to keep that #1 goal of serving our riders and serving the taxpayers of Pinellas County. And all of these services, as they start off, will be independently monitored to ensure for success. And we will always be looking at it closely as we need to make any iterative changes based on feedback to make the process even better. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and I look forward to hearing any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Darden. A couple questions. The service development grants from FDOT, how long do those typically last? And how much do they typically fund of operations?
Typically, it's 3 years, and that's the formula across the country. That is based on just the time it takes, even with the best of marketing efforts. It takes a while for the public to learn about these new routes and to use them. where it kind of gets into the DNA of the service ridership to really build to a crescendo of high ridership. And the amounts, I'm not sure exactly, but I would really imagine that really depends on, the project to project.
Okay, all right. Is that a competitive grant process to get a service development grant, or how does that work?
I believe it's a competitive process. It's not formula funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure you probably already thought about this, but I would definitely encourage you to get with Visit St. Pete Clearwater, because they've got a good relationship with Allegiant Airlines. So, potentially some co-branded marketing or something along with Allegiant would be very helpful, I think, to really get this moving.
Thank you. That's a great idea. And yes, the Tourist Development Council is totally in our
Yep.
focus. We would love all kinds of support from the Bureau.
Thank you. Commissioner Latvala.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Darden, for your presentation. And I appreciate you going into detail about the, what makes 34th Street a premium service. And so I have a couple questions with that. One being the fact that it's connecting to the Sunrunner, did that make it the obvious kind of choice to be the first premium service? And the second question is, are there other areas that y'all are looking at to turn into the premium or Spark service?
Commissioner Latvala, you're totally correct, and yes, to both of those questions. The whole thing that we're focusing on is how to build upon what we know are already proven successful corridors with high ridership and investing in that. So we have the Sunrunner BRT service. It's a spine for South St. Petersburg, or really South County. So we're looking at where 34th Street corridor would be the first of many, hopefully, what we call like Spark premium transit connections that would help connect to that spine. Now, the Spark 34th Street corridor is obviously not BRT. Maybe you could call it BRT Light, but the whole point is to connect stronger connections to our pulse points like the Grand Central District Station and the Sunrunner. And just to add on to that one more, we don't pull these corridors out of our hats. I mean, this is coordinated over years of long-term planning. It's coordinated with long-term plans that we do with our MPO, Forward Pinellas.
So are there corridors that y'all are looking at that do not connect to the Sunrunner to use this kind of service?
Yes. Well, yes. And I don't have the map with me. But I mean, 60 PIE to the beaches. It's certainly a corridor. That's one of our east-west corridors. That's on our one of our long-term maps. That is part of our TDP process with Forward Pinellas.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think probably the next ones that I can think of, we're starting the alternate 19 study, Seminole Boulevard, but that, I guess, down in St. Pete, it does technically connect to the Sunrunner, but it goes all the way to Clearwater on the Alt 19. And then when the Howard Franklin bridge gets completed, that would be maybe our next Spark service that would go from St. Pete to Tampa International and then across the bay using the new lanes on the Howard Franklin Bridge. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Walker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Clearwater Ferry, and this may fall in the category of new guy question, but at a high level, the scope of the RFP, because there's an existing service there, I just kind of want to understand what the request for proposal involves.
Commissioner Walker, that's a great question, and I'm looking to my CEO for guidance because the RFP process is still going on, and there's what we call the cone of silence. There is an incumbent entity currently providing service. We worked closely with the city of Clearwater and the city of Dunedin we spent weeks and big committees of people looking at all of the details that went into the development of the RFP, and that's publicly available, and we're certainly happy to share that with you. I hope that answers your question. It probably doesn't, but
Well, absolutely. No, I totally get the cone of silence, and I was just kind of looking for the.
And I would just add that, yes, currently there is a service that is by reservation only. And this would go, the RFP, which is out there, would be for scheduled hourly service. It would change to hourly, and it would expand to Thursday nights. Right now, it's just Friday, Saturday, Thursday days, all day. Right now, the service is just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so this would be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, hourly service to Dunedin and to Clearwater.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, that answered my question. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at the Height of the Beaches service and the fare, proposed fare structure here, I definitely think this could be a premium fare. And as you're working through different ridership scenarios, you might want to consider what it looks like for family pricing as well.
Yeah.
Family of four, something like that.
thank you. That's an excellent idea. Thank you.
All right, and Commissioner Petrilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got two questions starting, please. First, on the airport service, by being on demand, it seems almost like you're competing directly with rideshare, Uber, Lyft, and so on. At a single person fare of $5 one way, how are we making that economic sense there? Because the ride from PIE to Clearwater, for example, is probably $25, $30, right? So if you have a family of four, to Commissioner Scott's point, that's the same as Lyft or Uber, or just about, right? So how are we making those numbers work there?
Well, Commissioner Petrilla, you keep asking questions like that, and I'm going to recruit you to my planning committee. You're absolutely right. We are trying to balance how we provide that type of service, the type of service that people want that's competitive and affordable. We are looking at what would be premium fares. I honestly, until we sit down with airport officials, until we get to the point where we're doing probably a request for information process and talking with the entities who we would likely contract with, I don't really know exactly what that fare would look like. We have an idea of the range, and we have an idea, my team has been looking at other regional airports comparable to PIE to look at what they're doing, like how they started off, what are the fares that they're offering now, and they are premium fares.
So I guess just going back to my question, so
Yeah.
what's the point of us even getting involved in an on-demand service when there is already on-demand service available and we're competing at a comparable cost, or for single ridership at a loss?
Good question, and that's part of the process. We are working on this as a result of instruction and direction from the board. And as we start to get into this and get deeper into those questions and present that to you, these will be board decisions, really, to look at that. I mean, we're certainly not spinning our wheels and wasting our time. We're looking at how we can contract with a private provider to provide this type of service. I will say also that as my team is looking at planning this route, that as you look at the service to the airport and to the beaches, that routes that are also designed for the employees and workers, if you design a service that's good for employees, we'll probably also really be designing a route that's good for our tourists as well.
I guess part of that question is, people that come here on vacation, this is expendable income, right? This is not, this is what I'm living off of, right? But rather, so then the question is, why are we looking at subsidizing their vacations, right? And just as an example, one of the things that we've done in St. Pete Beach is we've actually put this burden on the resorts. And through city ordinance, they have to provide shuttle services to PIE, to Tampa, and we're looking at expanding at Sarasota as well, which doesn't put any tax burden at all on the local municipality or PSTA, but rather shifts that burden to the actual individuals who will be causing the increase in, ridership or, transportation or, traffic and so on. So my question is, have we looked at working with, Clearwater, for example, because this is where the service would go to, and say, what can you do working with the city of Clearwater and absorbing some, rather than our taxpayers absorbing the cost of subsidizing somebody's vacation, right? Let's put it back on where the money's actually at, in the resorts.
Commissioner Petrillo, those are all really good questions and a very legitimate point of view, and that's why the diversity of the board here when we make these big decisions is so important. We're looking at this from a point of view of not subsidizing tourist vacations, but looking at it comprehensively from an economic development standpoint. The people that visit this area, hey, if they spend all their time stuck in traffic, pay a lot of money for parking. If businesses are having to spend a lot of money building hundreds of parking spaces at their resorts, is there a way to look at what we've invested in our transit system as a way to work together and get more people moving quickly to the destinations they want to go to? And as we look at that, and if it makes financial sense from an economic development perspective to offer that support to our businesses and to the public, then perhaps this is something that the board would want to move forward with.
Thank you. And then to my second question.
Yes, sir.
Because that was just the first one. On the Sunrunner, what data do you have in expanding that service from 8 p.m. to midnight? What data do you have that would support the increased expense in the frequency? So more buses, more bus drivers, right? What data do we have that there's a ridership there to support the increase?
Great question. I'll bring up my data analyst, Devin, to answer part of that. By increasing that frequency, the city of St. Pete has offered the operating expenses that would normally be of cost to PSTA. So they are offering to support expanding that service. Expanding that time, actually, I don't believe it doesn't require more buses. It's just we're paying for more time for the operators to work longer. It doesn't require an additional bus. It's more the operating funds of paying for more bus drivers.
So is that saying that the request for this is a St. Petersburg request and it is not actually supported by any data, rather they want it and they're happy to pay for it?
Well, they did request it, they are paying for it, and Devin, did you want to comment on the ridership numbers?
Morning, PST Board. Devin Deal, Planning and Data Analyst Manager. Thank you for your question, Commissioner Petrillo. We see a pretty significant drop-off in ridership on the Sunrunner whenever service decreases from 15 minutes to 30 minutes starting at 8 p.m. We presented that data to the city, and that's what initially sparked this conversation.
So it's the ridership decrease because it's late in the day and nobody's riding, or is it because it's fewer buses?
That's sort of what we're trying to figure out with this, and that's the partnership we're pursuing with St. Pete. We believe it's a combination of both. We know demand likely increases later at night, but also we know that the more frequent routes are, generally the more people ride. And so With a lot of late night activity on St. Pete Beach and in downtown St. Petersburg, I think the city of St. Petersburg and PSTA is hopeful that this will increase ridership.
It's just on Friday and Saturday night.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And have you spoken with the surrounding cities where the Sunrunner goes through and look and see what they feel the impact is going to be on their cities, so South Pasadena, St. Pete Beach, et cetera?
I'm not sure if we.
We would be happy to. We would be happy to.
I'm here.
As am I.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I can sort of add to that from my own experience. There have been a few times, I'd say over the last year or so, that I have taken the Sunrunner to go from like the downtown core area out to Grand Central for dinner, drinks, meeting up with friends. But then to get back, it was, of course, after 8 o'clock. And if you just miss the one that came by, you're ready to go home, you're going to sit there for a half hour, or are you just going to call an Uber? So I think what this does, and why the city of St. Petersburg would like to see this happen, is that, you can give people sort of that peace of mind that, yeah, it's still going to be convenient even after 8 o'clock at night. And as most people know, downtown St. Petersburg through the Edge District and the Grand Central District is extremely lively at night, and we want to give more people that option to use public transportation instead of walking or any other option later in the evening. And having that convenience does mean that more people will take that option and plan around it. So it's really just kind of filling in an area of opportunity where there really is the demand, but because we're not offering the frequency, people are just finding other things to do. St. Petersburg wants to be able to offer Sunrunner when people want it, and this 15-minute interval fits the bill. All right, before we go to our next round, Commissioner LaValle, I think you had pushed your button earlier. I want to make sure, since things are a little strange today, I didn't want to miss you before we go on to the next round. Oh, and it looks like Commissioner Eggers would like to speak. Oh, okay. Right, I do have him, and then I'll go to you after Commissioner Eggers. Commissioner Eggers.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about this. I know this is it makes for a tough operation of a board meeting, and if you have 3 of us, it's even tougher. But thank you for accommodating me. I'm trying to get over a cold. I would just say, to me, the topic of conversation is perfect, and it's what we should be talking about. How do we create new services that might be of interest, whether they're data-driven, whether they're city-driven, whether they're business-driven. And I'm glad that we're taking a look at these. I commend your group for doing that, Darden, and continue to look at the details because, as they say, the devil's in the details. And a lot of the questions that are being asked this morning, I think, get to that. And I know that you're still working through a lot of items, but each of these service improvements, they're not all the same. They're not built equally. I'm not as excited about some as excited about others. But nonetheless, I'm glad that we're looking at this kind of thing, how we connect neighborhoods to 34th Street. We've done a little of that. How we connect 34th Street to downtown, obviously, 4th Street, excuse me, I'm sorry. And then how do we connect it to the Sunrunner? I just think there's a lot of connectivity, a lot of work that can be kind of coordinated with regarding businesses, cities, and the natural demand. And I do think it is a little bit of a trade-off, not knowing for sure on this, to Mayor Petrillo's comment about what is it demand that's driving the item, or is it the fact that service isn't available? So I think some of those things are trial and error, I guess. The city's willing to take a chance that it might be okay. we just, again, we're just watching closely as we expand these services. I think it's a great direction. I appreciate your work on it so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Eggers.
Yes, and Commissioner Eggers, I'm kind of admiring the halo effect created by the seal. Behind you, I would even say you almost look downright saintly today.
Well, that coming from a councilwoman in St. Petersburg, from a commissioner who voted against the raise yesterday, the deal, I appreciate that comment. And I will extend a congratulations to you and the city for the agreement that was agreed to by our commission yesterday. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir, and I'm certain that we can count on you to stand with us to continue this good work as the project is just getting started. And we'll be looking to you and the others on the county commission to ensure
Absolutely.
that this moves
Absolutely.
forward.
I think we're all going to be cheerleaders for success. Absolutely. So thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Can't wait to see you with your pom-poms. All right, so.
Oh,
next-
goodness.
Well,
Bye.
and on that note, we'll go to Commissioner Tom Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Darden. Just on the expansion of service for the Sunrunner, what is the City of St. Pete's commitment financially and time frame wise? Is this a proposed trial period to see how it works, or are they looking to make this a permanent expansion? And what time frame are we looking at?
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. I believe the amount I have heard most recently offered by the City of St. Pete is $100,000 annually.
Okay. Does that cover the increased expense of the drivers and the basically 6 more runs per
It does.
day? Okay.
I would characterize it as a trial. We haven't worked out the length. We've had some discussions with the city, and then I'll have to go to the city council. Whether it's just 1 year or, I don't think it would be more than 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief here. Just some comments about the proposed pie to the beach of service. Is, we have our county here is 1 million residents. And, market penetration on fixed route ridership has not been great. I mean, it's just, PSTA struggle with that. But we have 16 million visitors every year. So 16 times the population we have visits here. And that's only projected to grow with more hotel rooms coming online. So the thought is to, can we provide a service that will be successful and that people will ride, and that 16 million visitors puts a tremendous impact on our transportation infrastructure. So can we try to make a dent in that? And I think as, if we decide to do this, I think we have to be, honest with ourselves and view the success or not success critically. And if it's not working, we make adjustments. And if we find, that we try something and it doesn't work at the end of the day, that we're honest and we say it didn't work and we tried and we move on to something else. But that's kind of the thought process behind it. And it's something that, I've been suggesting that we take a look at for a long time, just simply for that reason. We have 16 million visitors that's come here, and that's a huge impact on our transportation infrastructure. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, great discussion. Thank you, Darden.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our action items. Our first action item today is to approve the maximum FY25 millage rate to advertise on the trim notice. Our CFO, Debbie Leos, will provide the presentation. Hello again, Debbie.
Well, good morning, everyone. Debbie Leas, CFO here at PSTA. So as Chair Driscoll just said, today we're going to be talking, our action item is about what is the maximum millage rate that we will propose or present to the property appraiser for the trim notices. So at the Planning Committee last week, we presented this action item to the committee, and the committee unanimously recommended for just the advertisement and the trim notice, our maximum millage rate, which we've had in place since 2017, of the 0.7500. Staff had made a recommendation to have a millage rate of 0.7342. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about where we are today. You've heard a lot of wonderful things that we're doing and where we came from. A year ago, we went through some very difficult discussions about route reductions and about route eliminations. PSTA, our CEO, gave us a directive: you have to keep the non-salary costs as flat as possible. We did that, probably with one major exception we'll hear about a little bit later, where costs increased on our MOD plan. But one of the things that happens when you're presented with challenges is you've got a lot of opportunities for improvement. So what we did is we became innovative. Commissioner Scott had said to me one day, PSTA needs to continue to do what we do best, which is innovation. With his help, we were able to maintain a service on the 814 route in Safety Harbor with privatized services. With Commissioner Cox, he helped us with enhancing and making sure our productivity on paratransit access continues to improve. We found a lot of ways that we have in the budget to improve our customer experience, and we found new partnerships. And that's what we heard a lot of today with developing partnerships, whether it's on the beaches, whether it was with FDOT and providing service development grants, things to move forward. And we improved our route analytics. You saw Devin Deal come up here earlier. He comes to our committee meetings every month and talks about a different route or how we're doing as a whole. That helps us in our decision making. And of course, we helped to take a look at, address the needs of the community. And you heard from Darden Rice this morning talk about all these different things that we're doing from a service standpoint, as well as we've got the new Sunrunner station that will be coming on board. So we've looked at the tourist piece of it with all of our visitors, improving the service that we have. One of the things that's important to me is making it very easy for the rider. One of our projects in the next budget will be having people to go online and get their reduced fare by registering online to do that, rather than going to a customer service center. Also important is the budget is able to support our continued free ride to veterans, Commissioner Litvala. Property tax is important to us. It accounts for approximately 67% of our budget, and what I did here is just a sample of, if we had our property taxes at a certain level, how far does it get us? And property tax gets us pretty far down the line of our operating costs. This may not be fully inclusive of all operating costs, but it shows that property tax is important to PSTA, but it also shows us the reason why we are seeking to improve our revenues and our partnerships. So while it's a big deal to us, when we look at it from a taxpayer perspective, we've taken a dollar bill and cut it up into little pieces. PSTA represents about 3.7% of the property tax that we're paying on our trims, which means for every dollar, it's 3.7 cents. So it kind of puts in perspective both from the taxpayer standpoint and from the PSTA standpoint. Our property tax is allowing us in the fiscal 25 budget to be balanced. It is allowing for the investments in the new premium services, and it is also allowing us to continue our free ride to veterans. So today, our action item before you is to approve a proposed tax levy rate. The Planning Committee recommended 0.7500 that we should transmit to the property appraiser as the maximum millage for the trim notice. Clearly, we can have further discussion as we go forward to see if it stays at the 0.75 or gets reduced. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chair Driscoll and see if she has any comments or wants to call on any Planning Committee members.
Thank you. Before we go to the board discussion, I think since the planning company did the deep dive into this, I'd like to hear from them. I know Commissioner Albritton is the chair, right? And he's not here. Commissioner Schulman, could you give us some insight just from the planning committee's perspective?
Yes. So really the main thought here was, this is what we're transmitting to the property appraiser and tax collector for
the upcoming year. As Debbie mentioned, we have the ability through our public hearings and the upcoming votes to vote on a millage rate. And we didn't want to, as we're having these conversations unfold over the next couple of months, we didn't want to limit what we can collect. So we wanted to just let taxpayers aware that we were going to be holding the millage rate at a maximum of the current stated rate. So it really just kind of gave us room to have these conversations as we hone in on our actual proposed budget.
All right, thank you. Any questions from other board members? Any other Zoomers wishing to speak on this item?
Madam Chair, I have
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you very much. What I wasn't seeing in the presentation is the rationale behind the staff recommendation for .7342, I believe was the number.
It is, and it was something that allows for a majority vote of the board. And that's how we calculated that number, was at the .7342. It will end up, compared to the .75, it'll be a reduction in taxes we receive of $1,794,014.00. But it does, reduce the amount of tax we would collect.
By 1.7 million.
Yeah, 1.8.
1.8.
And it was the amount that we could still have a balanced budget.
Yeah.
Okay. I see the point, okay. That's the minimum for a balanced budget.
It is approximately for a balanced budget, and it allows for the majority vote. We calculated it from a majority vote standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would propose that we move forward with the .7342, just for the fact that, since I think it was 2017, when PSTA maxed out the millage at .75 and has never really looked back. We've taken advantage of the full increase in property values since then. And, it's a small rollback, but I think it's important to at least send a message to the residents that we hear them, because a lot of people are really hurting out there between taxes and insurance and just the general cost of living. If we can tighten our belt a little bit and give a little bit back, I think that we should do that. And plus, it gives us a little bit of room. Right now, we have nowhere to go. We can't go up. We're maxed out. This gives us a little bit of room in the future, should we do that. So I would make a motion that we transmit the .7342.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And Commissioner Eggers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, I think there's two things. One is there's still work to be done on the budget, so that even if the board votes, and I'll support the motion on the table, but even if the board votes to do .75, I think it's important that we continue to look in the next month or so, because in September it almost becomes a fait accompli. So if we can look at some scenarios that either look at the staff's recommendation of .7342 or any other combination of cuts versus versus millage, that would be great. I think it's also important to go back to 2017 when I think we got to .75, and from that day annually, we've had increases, and I think Commissioner Scott talked about that momentarily, but just what that increase in revenue has been each of those years is important to put in context. It's not like, even though this has been fixed, it's not like taxes have been fixed. So I think that needs to be embraced, and at least make sure that the residents understand that we're not on a fixed budget here for the last 6 or 7 years. We've been getting extended income each year, or increased income each year. So, I think we just, there's still work to be done on the budget. This is the thing I kind of wanted to send the same signal in our commission meeting that just says, no, I think we got to commit to this rollback and make it work. And I think the message is right. So I commend the motion, the person who made the motion, the seconder for doing that, and I'll support that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree with Commissioner Eggers to the extent that there's still some work to do. There's items that we need to discuss through the budget process. We just heard about new initiatives. And so making sure that we have that flexibility as we enter the budget process is why I'm supportive of the 0.75 and why I made that recommendation at the planning committee level. I will disagree with Commissioner Scott that, and Commissioner Peters made the same argument, I think, last year or the year before, that, we need to lower the rate so that we have room to grow into it in the future in case we need extra funds. It's actually more fiscally prudent to take those funds if we don't wind up using them and add them to reserves because our millage rate is capped, right? So if we look forward, most of the growth in revenue has not come from existing residents, right? Homesteaded properties are capped. Commercial properties are capped. Most of the revenue has come from new development. And the pace at new development is going to continue to slow as we get more built out. And our ability to continue to raise revenue from property taxes is stopped at 0.75. And we're going to pass that line. In which case we're then going to have to do what we did last year, which is start looking at cuts to services and things like that. So at a bare minimum, there's 2 points to this argument. One, keep it at 0.75 so we can talk about it through the budget process fully, openly amongst the board and decide what we want to do. And separate from that is the consideration of should these funds be added to reserves and be used for potentially either new premium enhanced services or for future funding needs. I will also share, and I appreciate Debbie putting the dollar up there on how things break out. When we look at this, most residents, if we take the average millage, most residents are going to be saving $3 to $4 a year if we roll it back. So this notion that also we need to give back to folks that are hurting, I don't know how we make an argument that says, here's $3, you're welcome, versus the good that we can do as an agency by maintaining that a more sound physical footing, and certainly also keeping it open for discussion. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Petrilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Commissioner Schulman made 2 excellent points. The first one being that development is probably coming to a slowdown, probably not anytime soon, but maybe within the next 5 to 7 years. And so by rolling the rate back now, it actually gives us a cushion in the future that if that change does happen and the revenue does start to, well, the increase in revenue starts to slow down, that gives us an opportunity to go somewhere versus right now we're maxed out. And the second excellent point that he made was that if we leave it at 0.75 and we have the surplus, we will find ways of spending it. And so that's, I think, the other reason why we should roll it back, to be able to send a message that says, here is the cap, figure it out, let's work within the parameters that we're given at a balanced budget, rather than having a surplus and then finding ways of spending that surplus, which is what tends to happen on a regular basis. When you've got a couple extra bucks in your pocket, they get spent. I do disagree with, it probably is only $3 to $5 per person, but I think it's a cumulative effort. Right, because it's a cut by 1,000, it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? Every little increase, whether it's insurance, property taxes, cost of living, everything else, all of those things accumulate, and they do have a huge impact on the people that live in our county. And so if we can do even one thing, even if it's just reducing it by the cost of one Starbucks coffee, I think we should do it. And we should look at, for all of us in other areas of government, we should look at how else we can alleviate the tax burden on our residents. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes. Do we have a target fund balance or reserve that we have passed, and are we close to that? not aware of
Yes,
that.
we have pursuant to board requirements, we have a 2-month operating reserve that is generally for people in natural disaster areas lower than normal, but we do have the 2 months fully reserved. We also have a claims liability reserve, which took me a little bit to get it fully reserved this year, but I got it there. And beyond that, we've got some other little pockets of reserves, but those are more contractual. And one of the things that the county, Commissioner Eggers had brought up, was something we don't have, and that is a health insurance reserve. For those times when the health insurance costs exceed what is, I will say, the normal increases. So we don't have anything like that here at PSTA. It's something he recommended, maybe we start small to set aside.
When's the last time we had a conversation on reserve or fund balance?
Probably last year, but it's one thing that I love to talk about, so I'm happy to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I feel like we should have that conversation if we should put money away on the good years for the bad years as an organization. And I understand the reducing the rates, is another way to do that, so we have room to go up. If we commit to putting this money aside for a rainy day, I'd be more supportive of it, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, thank you. Just one last comment. Just listening to my colleagues and just a couple of points about the growth that we have experienced and are going to experience, and then new tax dollars making the biggest impact on the increases in taxes or values in our county. And I don't disagree with that, but just keep in mind that probably half of our properties are Save Our Homes capped, so they're at 3%. And there's, a big portion of the remainder capped at 10%. So even without any new growth, you're still talking about somewhere in the 6% range of increases. And so I would still argue that we're getting a reasonable, if not sizable, but reasonable increase each year. But on top of that, as we've alluded to, we've had new construction that's added to that. So I just think that we have been given tax dollars at a reasonable rate to do the work that we're charged to do. The health insurance item that I mentioned, I know we're self-insured at the county. It's a little different than here at PSTA. And so being self-insured, having a little shock absorber in the system is really important, so that we kind of move up and down each year. Not quite sure how that translates to how we do it here, but it just struck me that we have no reserves for health insurance, an area that obviously is wrought with all kinds of cost increases here and there. So as we try to manipulate dollars that we have to provide reasonable insurance for our employees. So anyway, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Eggers. I appreciate always your perspective on things. And to your point, the reason why I'm in favor of the 0.75 transmission to at this point for trim notices is so it seems like across this board we have some things to discuss. We have some different questions about exactly how everything plays out, and by having the 0.75, it allows us to have that conversation. It is not voting on the actual millage rate at this point. Those votes are going to come up over the next couple of months. So I just wanted to make sure that we have the room to have that conversation, as opposed to hamstringing that now in this part of the conversation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Commissioner Tom Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my button on the screen doesn't work. I guess I have to hit it.
I actually got it this
Okay,
time,
good.
but
Thank
it
you.
was after I had noticed Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you so much. I just want to echo Commissioner Schulman's position. We came up with this number in the committee, again, for the main reason of just having one to advertise, and hopefully we can come down, because there's some fair adjustments that were discussed that hopefully we can find a way to find a happy median and still get to the staff's recommended rate. But the fair adjustments that came up impact, an MOD, a significant portion of our community. And so I wanted to have the flexibility to make sure we could find a happy ground on them. So it's with that reason, again, I'm hoping we can ultimately get to the staff's recommended millage rate, but for the purposes of trim, I strongly support the .750, and I ask everybody else to. Thank you.
Thank you. And I agree. I mean, I think, actually, I agree with a few people who have spoken today. I do think it's important that we take a look at the reserves and make sure that, that, you know, we have the protection that we need and that planning. And I do trust that you are looking at that and looking for opportunities. We just heard the presentation from Darden Rice on, you know, kind of where we stand right now and some of the planned enhancements that are in the works for the community for FY25. And it sounded like almost everyone could find at least one enhancement that they liked or agreed with completely, or at least were open-minded to. And I absolutely appreciate the work that went into developing these proposed enhancements, because I see PSTA really shifting to having more of a surgical approach to improving services for the riders. And at the end of the day, that's what this is supposed to be about. And so I like that we have this sort of customized approach to looking at what our riders' needs really are and how can we enhance that. And that comes in the form of, you know, creating the service from PIE to the beaches. It comes in the form of making sure we continue to offer free rides for veterans. And thank you again, Commissioner Latvala, for bringing that forward, something that we can all be proud of. Making sure that we can continue to advance the transportation disadvantaged services and really be a leader in the ferry services as we move forward as well. This stuff, we all, you know, there are parts of it everybody can say they like. None of it's free. And so if we want to continue moving forward, if we want to continue achieving recognition on a national level, if we want to continue to serve the people of this county and those who visit here, we need to be willing to make the investment in this. We all know that PSTA is one of the lowest funded transit agencies of its size. And I certainly appreciate that there's been, especially in the last year, a lot of attention being paid to looking for ways to cut costs without cutting our standards down. Looking for ways to avoid cutting routes. And I was so pleasantly surprised to see that this year, we don't have to, right now, we're not having to look at doing that. Staff is always looking for ways to create innovative solutions to make sure we're more efficient and that we're really being very responsible with costs. And I commend everyone who has worked on that for the last year. I've seen a difference. And this continues that. Not only do we not have to cut routes if we stick with this investment, but we'll be able to improve on what we're already doing and take on some new responsibilities that we are completely prepared to do. I don't know that we can really do that without having this rate of 0.75. I know that in the city of St. Petersburg, I'm very proud that we were able to do a small reduction in our millage rate. I don't remember what the county did. I don't remember if y'all decided. Well, I'm putting it out there into the county's universe to consider that, you know, this is, these are other ways that we can put more than the value of a cup of Starbucks back into people's pockets. But maybe by doing that and having this stay at 0.75, we can continue to take this surgical approach to improving PSTA, which I think, well, and should be the reason that all of us are sitting here on this dais today, because we want it to improve. And so, although I respect the intention to reduce the cost of people in Pinellas County, I think that the investment per person yields a far greater return. And so, unfortunately, I will not be able to support the motion that's on the table right now, but I would be very supportive of moving forward at 0.75 and continuing these discussions on, that will ensure that we all feel comfortable with where that money is going. We've got some great ideas that have been brought forward by staff and by board members. I want to keep that discussion, but if we handcuff ourselves or, sell ourselves short, then at the end of the day, the riders are the ones who are going to suffer, and I don't want to see that happen. On that note, I do not see any other requests for discussion, unless there's a Zoomer. No Zoomers want to talk? All right. So we have a motion and a second on the table. Does anyone need that motion repeated? Thank you. Could we open the machine for voting, please? Okay, commissioners, if you could please enter your votes. And Commissioner Eggers, your vote, please.
Yes.
Commissioner Saraki?
No.
Commissioner Schulman?
No.
All right. And are you sure that's everybody? Okay. The motion passes 7-5. Thank you, everyone. Very good discussion. We'll go on to item 7B, FY25 revenue adjustments. And for that, we have Debbie again and Director of Mobility Bonnie Epstein, who will present the proposed adjustments.
Thank you so much, Chair Driscoll. So this action item today has to do with a lot of what we've just been talking about. Fiscal sustainability from the revenue side and also cost containment. And I'll be talking more on the revenue side, and Bonnie will be talking a little bit more on the cost containment. Last week, we held a public hearing on these adjustments, and they covered two basic areas. One is on the fixed route, having a fare cap adjustment that had no public comment. And then on the mobility on demand guide rails, we did have several people come to the public hearing and give us some feedback. And they were some of our, I will call super users, some of our users of the MOD system. So we really appreciated what they had to say. A big thank you to them. I think we have two people here from the Lighthouse. And based on their input, you'll be hearing from Bonnie, we did amend our recommendations. So we're very, very appreciative of that. But let me just start out by talking about the fixed route adjustment. The fixed route adjustment that we had no comments on was increasing the monthly fare cap from $70 to $85, consistent with the regional pass fare. Currently, when you're tapping to get on the bus with our Flamingo fares, it's $5 a day. You'll reach after about 14 days your $70. By increasing this fare cap to $85, you're going to be probably going from 14 days to 17 days to reach that fare cap. But the majority of the people this impacts will not be impacted at all, and that is our TD riders. So our TD riders pay $11 a day, or a month, for their bus pass in the state of Florida through the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, picks up the other piece of it. Now, because of our recommendation to make this change, a fare equity analysis is required by the Federal Transit Administration, and it was determined it had no negative impacts. We talked about this a little bit earlier. We get a tranche of funding every year from the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. It's an annual grant, and you either use it or you lose it. In the last few years, we've been giving money back. So by changing this to from $70 to $85, I'll be getting an additional $15 through the grant, and the TD customer is still only paying $11. It's significant. It's around $440,000 worth of grant funds that I would otherwise be giving back that we will be able to keep. And this also will help us. We saw a little bit of a shift from those folks who were veterans on the TD program who have shifted to free. So our TD program has gone down. So we've been leaving money on the table, not only with that, but other things. So this will really significantly help us from a revenue standpoint. So the good news is I'm not going to be asking for any additional state funds for this. I'm going to use the grants that we currently have every year. No increase in the base fare, no increase to our daily cap, and also no increase, which is very important to our transportation disadvantaged customers. They'll still only be paying $11. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie.
Awesome. Thanks, Debbie. Good morning, board members. As Debbie mentioned, I'm going to talk about putting in some guide rails to our Mobility on Demand program. So we're proposing these guide rails because we think they're essential to controlling costs for the paratransit service. As you'll recall from my presentation last month, the total paratransit ridership has increased close to 50%. I'll repeat that again, 50% since 2018. MOD is a great service, and we really want to keep it and believe that these guide rails will impact a minimal number of riders. Last week, we brought 3 proposed guide rails to the Planning Committee, and we heard some comments from Mobility on Demand super users on the proposal. On Friday, July 26th, just this past Friday, I met with all of the speakers that came last week to a Zoom call to answer their questions and address some of their concerns. We'll be working with the Lighthouse to set up their own Uber and Lyft accounts so they can cover the work trips for their staff. We can also help train staff who oversee these accounts, as well as the riders and the employees who are going to be taking the trips. I'm happy to work with any other employer like the Lighthouse that has staff that use the MOD programs and set them up as well. I'm really grateful that the Lighthouse team has been flexible and willing to work with us on these guide rails. We really have the same goal of getting riders with disabilities not just where they need to go, but improving their mobility and quality of life as well. I'm confident that with setting up the work account that I mentioned for the Lighthouse and additional training on the PSA Access program for the Lighthouse riders and any riders, that the guide rails that we want to put in place are really going to have a minimal impact on all riders. The first guide rail that we're proposing is actually something Commissioner Cox recommended, which is to have the Mobility on Demand copay equal that of the PSA Access copay. So each trip on the Mobility on Demand service and PSA Access would be the same, $4.50 per trip. We're changing our second guide rail here based on the feedback that we got from the Lighthouse team. Instead of our original proposal of customers paying $2 per mile after the first 15 miles of the trip, we're now proposing that riders pay $1 per mile after the first 20 miles of the trip, so going from 15 miles to 20 miles. Currently, less than 2% of all MOD rides are greater than 20 miles, and the average length of an MOD ride is between 6 and 7 miles. The third guide rail we're also changing a little bit so that after 30 MOD rides in the month, customers will pay that base $4.50 plus $1 per mile instead of $2 per mile for each trip. Right now, the average MOD rider is taking about 12 MOD rides per month, and only about 10% of MOD riders take more than 30 trips per month. However, this top 10% of super users take 35% of the total rides overall in the MOD program in a given month. But by working with the Lighthouse and similar companies to remove those trips that are taken at work, And we think between the access and MOD services, that riders will have the ability to not be impacted at all. Between taking rides on access and MOD, they won't have to decrease or limit their trips or mobility. I know there have been some concerns about getting to work and appointments at a certain time, and I'm happy to talk with the riders here at this meeting or any rider about how PSTA Access can work to get riders to work on time with our pickup and arrive by windows. Just to reiterate, the guide rails that we have on the screen here and that we've been talking about are only for the Mobility on Demand program. Customers can always use PSTA Access, which has no proposed changes for the PSTA Access service. In addition to the recommendations that we've gone over, we'll also need to approve a fare equity analysis for Flamingo changes that Debbie mentioned earlier, and all of the fare changes that we've talked about here would take place on October 1st. And before I pass it back to the chair, I just want to thank the riders that are here today and who came out for the public hearing. There's a few of us that still work here at PSTA who started the Mobility on Demand pilot program back in 2017. I know Ross is here in the room with us. We really had a vision for a future where paratransit riders could do things like our bus riders. So take last minute shifts at work, stay late, go out, grab something from the grocery store and go out to dinner with friends. We really wanted to make the service better for riders that need PSTA services the most. And hearing last week from the speakers about their lives that have really been changed by the MOD program, I just think that's so cool. And I'm so excited that we've really been able to achieve the goal that we thought about. We really want to change things, back in 2017, that goal's been realized. When we started the program, as a pilot, we really were one of the first agencies in the country to have a program, an on-demand program like this. And we really are still relatively unique today. But all other systems that have a true on-demand program for paratransit riders, they do have guide rails very similar to the ones that we're proposing. And I really want to make sure that the growth that we see on the Mobility on Demand program is sustainable so that it can remain part of our paratransit services for forever, for many years to come. And with that, I'll pass it back to the chair. Happy to answer any questions or anything.
All right, thank you. Before we have our board discussion, I'd like to open this for anyone from the public who wishes to speak. We do have a couple of people who have filled out a green card just to speak on this. If you have not filled out a green card to speak, now is your chance. You can hand it to the ladies at the front here. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak, and if you could please give your name and address for the record once your name is called and you approach the podium. By having our public comment first, the voice of the people will be able to help inform our discussion. So first, we have Tiffany Stafford. Good morning. If you could give your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Tiffany Stafford, 301 Belcher Road North, Largo, Florida, 33771. Hi, everyone. My name's Tiffany. I am an employee for the Lighthouse of Pinellas. I'm an orientation and mobility instructor. What that means is I go out into the community and I teach people with visual impairments how to use their canes and how to travel in the community independently. Today, I would like to speak on Guide Rail 3, the 30 rides a month. I was thinking that it would be good for us to have 40 rides a month. The reason why is because for me personally, I use MOD to get to and from work. Now, I could use Access for some of those rides, but most of these rides that I'm getting to and from work, I'm ending in different places, and oftentimes my schedule needs to be flexible. And with PSTA Access, I'm not always ending in the same place every day. And I also wanted to thank you guys for the Mobility on Demand program. It has been a lifesaver for me and for lots of visually impaired people throughout the county. I know clients at the Lighthouse are very grateful for it, and I understand that the guide rails do need to be in place for financial reasons. I just think that the 40 rides a month would be beneficial because you would have 5 days in a work week and then 4 weeks of work, so that would be 20 round trips. So that is what I came to speak about today, and I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Meredith Taylor. Ms. Taylor, as you approach the podium, just a reminder that you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and if you could please start by giving your name and address for the record.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Meredith Taylor, 617 Boston Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida, 34689. I'm very nervous. Never done anything like this before, but good morning. And I am the Director of Programs at Lighthouse of Pinellas. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and the adjustments that have been made since the initial proposal. However, I do believe, as Tiffany said, that the guide rails remain somewhat too restrictive. So MOD provides real transportation independence for those in our community who cannot drive. And access has been provided or proposed as a solution. So what I would like for you guys to do is contemplate the number of times in a month you're able to get into your vehicle on a minute's notice, on a moment's notice, and make it to the store, to the pharmacy, to church, to a child's sports event, or a meeting like this morning. I didn't know I was coming here this morning. Now imagine that you do not drive because you're legally blind. So not only do you maybe lack the funds to purchase a vehicle, but even if you had a vehicle, you could not drive it. And you're waiting for an access ride to get to work, and your ride is late. And now you're late to work. And that this happens often. How many of your employers would be okay with that? How many of them would be sympathetic with that? Maybe for a little while, but after a while, probably not. Imagine you're waiting outside for a ride with the heat index of 101 or 112 like it's been recently, and you're waiting for 30 minutes for your access ride. Imagine that you're an older adult whose body cannot regulate your temperature, and so you're waiting outside for that ride. So access right now, as it currently is great. It really is a wonderful service, but it is not reliable, which discourages people from using it. And so the people then do turn to MOD. If access could be made more reliable, it would be a viable option. But until that time, MOD is essential. I respectfully request further discussion and research on the topic of MOD or making access more dependable prior to a final vote on this topic. How we take care of and provide for the equity of the most disadvantaged in our community is a reflection on our community as a whole. And while I recognize guide rails are necessary because nothing is free, these guide rails require further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And you did a great job. It was like you've done this like 1,000 times before. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Commissioner Scott first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, it looks like the net fiscal impact of these changes to PSTA will be just over $1 million. It looks like $440,000 in additional grant revenue and then $600,000 in cost savings.
That is correct.
Okay, got it. And then when was the last time we adjusted, and I'm not suggesting we adjusted for this fiscal year, but the monthly bus pass TD fares? I mean, I've been on the LCB forever. I want to say it was 6 or 7 years ago. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably something that maybe we want to, I think we have to be very thoughtful and careful on that, but maybe for the future, something maybe we want to just evaluate and see if that's appropriate to do that or not.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
All right, anyone from Zoom who would like to weigh in on this? I would like to ask about the suggestion from the public that that the 30 trips per month be considered and potentially increased to 40.
Yeah, that is something that we took a look at. Increasing the allocation from 30 to 40, there is a significant cost to that. So we looked at the other guide rail of the mileage cap, which is something we also talked about on Friday with the Lighthouse team. Someone said that, Joanne that came out here last week specifically said, I really want that 20 miles. I think that'd be really beneficial. And we heard last week from riders who are traveling a further distance to get to and from work, and thought that that would be a better, change to make than the going to 40, which had a really significant cost to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know we heard some comments about PSTA access. I'm happy to talk with anybody that has specific issues with the access program. It's something that we are monitoring all day, all the time. Our on-time performance for access right now is always above 90%. We're close to 93, 95% every day. So we really do think that it is a very reliable service, and it has been for years. Access is something, used to be called DART, but we've offered here at PSTA for decades.
Yeah, it sounds like overall the numbers are good, but clearly there's something happening out there, some kind of a glitch or an exception to these good numbers. So I hope that you can look into that and see if there is some adjustment somewhere that needs to be made.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can, work with riders to use the arrive by window. I think a lot of riders are used to using the pickup window, but then if the trip is shared, most of the time they're getting to work at a certain time because their trip isn't shared. But then when the trip is, they're late to work. If we use the arrive by window, we're always making sure customers are getting to work, at the time they need to be there. There's the 30-minute window is, if you need to be there by 9, it would be 8:30 to 9.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can definitely do some more outreach and things there.
That sounds like a great idea. And then so can you remind me, so is one trip, so we're looking at 30 trips, is one trip one way or a round trip?
That's one way. Yeah, right now, like I said, riders are taking on average, the number was between 12 and 13 rides per month on the MOD program. Yes, and the average trip length was between 6 and 7 miles.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And maybe I could just add to what Bonnie was describing. So at least what we heard at the public hearing last week from very heavy users of the Mobility on Demand program, like 90 trips a month, was because they don't have a car. They have to use one of our services for all of their rides. They go to work, and then they have to travel around the county doing teaching, and they're taking all these trips for their employer. And right now, their employer's not paying for those. PSDA is paying for those rides, all those rides that they're doing for their job, and then they're going home. So the idea by having the 30, and they can still take 90 trips. They can still take 90 trips, and we'll schedule all those for them if they want. They'll just, after the 31st trip and above, will be $1 a mile more. The idea would be, and Bonnie was describing this, is we could set up an account, kind of like a UPass. Well, that's my idea. It wouldn't be called that, but it's sort of like for the employer. that they could pay for the rides for their employees, just like other employers do. I think that's what you were talking about, right?
Yeah, we called the Lighthouse yesterday, actually Tiffany was on the call, that we can set up, there's a few different ways we can set up an account specifically for Lighthouse, so that, these trips where they're going to the different students or people throughout the county during the day can be taken on, their account and have, Lighthouse pay for those trips like they do for non-visually impaired staff. And then, so that would leave the monthly allotment for, all the other kinds of trips, grocery store and doctors and things that they need to take.
Interesting. Okay. Looking forward to hearing more about that as you discuss some different options. I think Commissioner Johnson, had you requested to speak on?
Question answered.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. I don't see any requests to speak from Zoom at this point or anyone else. So, do I have a motion to approve the fare adjustments?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 7B. Could we open the machine for voting, please? Commissioners, if you'll please enter your votes. And our Zoom votes, Commissioner Eggers,
Yes.
Commissioner Saraki,
Yes.
Commissioner Schulman.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox is a yes. And the motion carries. Thank you. And thanks to those who came out to speak on this today. Your insight was valuable. We're going to shake things up a little bit on the agenda and just do a quick reorder and go now to item 7D regarding the Sunrunner Station construction. After that, then we will go to the FY25 scorecard. So for now, we have Abhishek Dayal, our Director of Project Management, to talk about 2 contracts for the new Sunrunner Station construction. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Abhishek Dayal, Director of Project Management. And I'm very excited to talk about this item. This is a 2-part action item. Action number 1 is to approve an amendment with an existing contract that we have with David Nelson Construction Company to construct the First Street North Station at a cost not to exceed $780,000, which includes a 10% contingency. The second item is to approve a task order with HDR Inc., and they will provide construction oversight for the construction for the same station for an amount not to exceed $185,000. And just as a reminder, this task order with HDR is under the on-call project management, construction management services contract that the board approved a few months ago. So back when we had originally designed and planned for the Sunrunner project 10 plus years ago, at that time, the pier was not in existence. All the cool activities, all the cool destinations at the pier were not available. So the closest station currently to the pier is either at 5th Street North Station or 3rd Street South Station. And as Mayor Saraki had mentioned in the Finance Committee, it's quite a bit of a walk to get to the pier. It's about half a mile, sometimes even longer. And we've heard from the communities also to get closer to the pier, to bring it closer to the destinations there. It also fits in really nicely with the board goals that you all had discussed during your budget workshop, to bring in more riders, to bring in more tourists. And we believe this station will certainly do that. We definitely expect ridership to increase as a result of this station. And the best news is that the 100% of the funding will be covered out of the savings from the original Sunrunner project. I've said this before to the board, and I'm really proud to say it again. We were significantly under budget, $5.3 million under budget when we opened the first portion of the Sunrunner project. And so the cost of construction and HDR's task order both will be paid for with those savings. Another thing that I want to point out is those $5.3 million, we actually gave back $1.9 million back to the federal government. So they can actually use those funds to help out other transit agencies from around the country. And I'm sure they're thankful for that as well. And so again, just to reiterate, there are no impacts to PSTA budget. We're only asking for funds from our savings, which, by the way, can only be spent on the Sunrunner. We can't use those savings for anything else. Those can only be applied to Sunrunner improvements, and that's what this is being proposed to utilize. Now, looking at the proposal that we received from Nelson Construction for the cost of building the station, it's twice as high compared to the bid that they had submitted back in 2020 when they were bidding for the full project. And it's not surprising. At the time in 2020, there were 30 stations, so there were economies of scale associated with building 30 stations, so they could spread their costs across those multiple stations. In this case, they're building one station, so it's obviously higher cost to mobilize, all the MOT costs and all of that. The second thing that we looked at was, what are the market conditions around Tampa Bay? And in talking to Pinellas County, who have their Penny for Pinellas projects, City of St. Petersburg, FDOT, all of them have told us that the costs have gone up really, really fast since 2020. In fact, I've included a table from the Engineering News Record that shows materials cost, building costs, they also have labor cost, and they've all shot up pretty significantly since 2020. So pretty much looking at all of those components together, the general consensus was that the amendment to Nelson's contract was likely the fastest and the lowest cost way to build this station. So the action requested, again, is to approve an existing contract with David Nelson Construction Company for an amount not to exceed $780,000. And then the second part is to issue a task order with HDR Inc. for construction management services for a not-to-exceed amount of $185,000. Madam Chair, I also wanted to introduce a couple of guests here that we have. Jeff Nelson from David Nelson Construction Company, Lee Lilla, who was the project manager for the original project, and she'll be coming back to build the station. And then James Van Steenberg, who was the construction manager with HDR. He was the construction manager for the original project. He's coming back to help us with this new project. It was a collaborative effort. It was this successful, inclusive collaboration that got us this APTA award that you heard about this morning. And we're super proud to have this team come back who are familiar with this project. They've shown that they're capable. They brought this project in under budget. And so we're super excited to bring them on board for this new endeavor. So with that, Madam Chair and the board, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. I will say I'm extremely excited about getting this done. It is this station is one that I feel should have been built in the first place, but I appreciate that care was taken to ensure that the project did not go over budget. And it's wonderful that this is actually going to be paid for with the savings from the project. So that's great. This is going to be the new closest stop to the St. Pete Pier, which you know has been extremely popular. It's also going to be a lot closer to a lot of folks who live in our downtown condos and apartment buildings. You know, those are growing all the time, especially as you get into the downtown core and the waterfront. And so this is going to make it just that much easier for someone to be able to get either to our waterfront and all that it has to offer, whether you're there to work or play, And, you know, for those who live in that area, it'll just give them easier access to get to western areas of the city without having to use a car. So this is just a logical next step. I'm glad it's already financed and everything. And I'm very glad that we have Nelson, HDR, the same team working on this one, because there was such positive feedback from city staff with the city of St. Petersburg on how great everyone was to work with. So I know that this will be a welcome addition to downtown, and it's a very welcome partnership as well. So thank you for the work that you've done, and to all of the partners that we've collaborated with on this. Seeing that there's no request to speak, I'll entertain a motion for approval. This is something we can take up both items at once. And so I will entertain a motion for approval of items 7D, A and B together.
Second.
All right, all right. We got it.
He wins.
We have a motion and a second. Any other, did we have anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, great. Seeing that there's no request for further discussion, could we open the voting machine, please? Commissioners, if you'll please enter your votes. And going to the Zoomers, Commissioner Eggers, your vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Schulman, your vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Saraki?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the motion carries. Thank you so much. All right, now we will go to item 7C, our FY25 scorecard, and presenting that is Trish Collins, our Director of Human Resources.
Good morning, Chair Driscoll and board members. It's a pleasure to be up here today. It's back, okay. Oh, well, we'll just do a quick recap of the entire board meeting. Nope. Did we lose it?
I don't think it's in there.
Well, I do believe you have in your packets the presentation for the 2025 scorecard. So while we try to figure this out, I'll just move ahead speaking about the topic today. I'm Trish Collins. I'm the Director of Human Resources at PSTA, and I also have the pleasure of leading the balanced scorecard for the organization. I'm here to present an action item to approve PSTA's proposed priorities for the FY25 Performance Count Scorecard. So our Performance Count Scorecard is a link between the board's strategic plan and the operational decisions, projects, and priorities that are carried out on the ground every day. PSTA has followed this data-driven strategic model for years in our mission to serve Pinellas County. You can think of it as a report card showing our performance on the highest priorities for the agency. The PSTA scorecard has a direct relationship to our fiscal year 25 budget, which you're making important decisions about this time of year. Oh, good. Here we are. No, that's all right. Perfect, thank you. So this time of year, you're making important decisions about PSTA's budget, and the priorities reflected in the budget are what's represented on the balanced scorecard. All of the metrics are tied to our budget, our expenses, revenues, capital projects, new service, all of the important priorities that you are making decisions on and moving forward. So the scorecard and the budget are tools that work together to achieve the priorities of the board. So it's very fitting that we're taking up this item at the same time of year that we're making decisions, that you're making decisions about the budget. The FY25 scorecard was developed based on April's board workshop, where I had the pleasure of working with many of you at a table exercise where we looked at the board's highest priorities by working on the agency's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So by doing that exercise, we identified the most important priorities that you all felt we should focus on for the upcoming year. And the resulting scorecard is then a powerful tool that is driving those board priorities, and it's a transparent measure of how we're doing. It ensures accountability to our goals, and it's the basis of performance reviews for every administrative employee, including our CEO. During the workshop in April, you communicated many constructive ideas for our scorecard priorities, and the majority of which related to these 3 key areas: services and rider experience, economic vitality, and resiliency. You do have a copy of the proposed scorecard in your packet, and I'm going to take just a moment to go through each of these key areas and the metrics that are represented on the scorecard. We'll take them one by one. So first, a great many of the ideas discussed at the board workshop, and indeed at today's meeting and every meeting that we have, a great many of those priorities coming from the board relate to our services and our rider experience. So to ensure that we're putting our riders first, we're retaining customer satisfaction surveys for our fixed route and our paratransit service, and also adding a customer service metric for our new ferry service. We've also heard very clearly that ridership growth is an important and valuable priority for PSTA. And so starting in 2025, we are adding a metric to demonstrate ridership growth. As in past years, we're also including a metric to measure employee satisfaction, which will be measured through a survey conducted next year. Next, we heard your focus on economic vitality. Now, this area includes 2 new metrics that we're adding to the scorecard for next year. One is a measure of our fare recovery. That's fares that are collected at the fare box, also our U-Pass programs, partnerships, and other revenue-generating ideas. We're also measuring the return on investment for the Sunrunner project. So our Sunrunner service is enhancing the economic development of the community throughout the corridor, and so we have a metric to measure that return on investment by looking at the value of economic growth. We're also maintaining important economic metrics that are currently on the scorecard, including measuring our efficiency as measured by the operating cost per revenue hour, and our budget variance to ensure that we're staying within the approved budget. Finally, we have an area on the scorecard to focus on resiliency priorities that we have heard from you. So we're proposing metrics to demonstrate our system resiliency with goals related to fuel reduction, which of course saves the agency money and also has a positive impact on the environment, as well as a metric related to the condition of our assets, the state of good repair, things like our vehicles and our facilities. And we're carrying forward our goal to reduce collisions, which of course has an economic impact as well as improves the customer experience. So in summary, this is an action item to approve the Performance Count Scorecard priorities for fiscal year 2025. I'll also add that while developing this scorecard, we took this to the Executive Committee and the Planning Committee, and it was approved unanimously by both bodies. So with that, I will turn back over to the board for any comments, questions, or discussion.
Is it working? All right, thank you. I'm acting chair for a moment. Do we have any questions for Trish? No? And is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? Okay. Do we want to go ahead or wait?
Yeah.
All right.
Great job.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the scorecard? I need a second, please.
Second.
Did you get those? Yeah. All right, very good. All right, can you please open the voting system, please? And then our Zoom, Commissioner Eggers,
Yes.
Commissioner Saraki,
Yes.
or Vice Chair, sorry about that, and Commissioner Schulman. Commissioner Schulman,
Yes.
thank you. And it all right, and everybody, it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Passing on over.
All right. Now we'll go to our reports and correspondence, as well as future meeting subjects. Brad, would you like to update us on the reports in our packet and upcoming meeting subjects?
I would, and I'll be brief. Thank you, everybody. I thought that was a good, a good discussion on all those items. Thinking way back to the very beginning of the meeting, when we talked about winning the grant award for buses, just a couple weeks ago, right after we got that award, I asked my staff to do what I think the PSA board did today, and take a deep dive into really analyzing this great opportunity with these funds that we're going to get from the federal government for buses, and how we can best utilize those funds for our long-term future. And so I'm very thankful to Henry Lukasik, our maintenance director, Debbie Leas, our CFO, and Al Burns for all working to come. We're planning on coming back to you next month with a contract award with Gillig, our bus manufacturer, for many more buses than the Secretary of Transportation talked about that were in our application, because we can afford a larger number of buses. After we've done a lot of work, we've worked with Gillig already to be able to place this order. Ordering these vehicles now, even though they're not going to be delivered for a while, and we won't actually have to pay for them for a while, but ordering them now keeps the price down for us, and basically sets us up. There's a lot of other technical reasons that will go in at the Finance Committee and at the board meeting next month, but look forward to that. We are changing our plans to for our long-term fleet replacement, to make sure that we always have a mix of vehicles, not 100% electric, not 100% anything. That we would plan for always a mix of service type. We're gonna try to buy some smaller buses as well. And so I'm very excited, and I'm thankful for the work that the staff has done in a very quick amount of time, so that we can get to you next month with a bus award using those grant funds. Also working very hard. I want to point out, it was left face down until you voted on the Sunrunner Station, but you're invited to a groundbreaking at the Sunrunner Station that you just approved today on August 16th. As my staff said, well, you know, they make the championship things for the Super Bowl, and then they throw out T-shirts if it doesn't pass, if they don't win. So that was the same thing. But we'll be having a groundbreaking on August 16th. Mayor Welch is scheduled to be there for that station. As you heard earlier, next month also we hope to have a contract award for the ferry Thank you to Al for being my co-captain on the Clearwater Ferry RFP. And to the discussion, I think I want to thank Commissioner Scott for giving me a lot of input on the Airport Express service. And Al, we're working on what we're calling an industry day, where we're bringing in potential vendors, different companies that can advise us before we issued any kind of RFP on how to, that service. There was some questions about the fare that you asked Mayor Petrilla about how we stay competitive with Uber or whatever. We're gonna ask the private, the private companies that might propose this, get their input first. And thanks to Al for organizing that. That's gonna happen in August as well. So with that, there's lots to do, as you all have described, but we're looking forward to it. Happy to answer questions on anything that's in your packet as well.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay. Do we have any other business to discuss, or does any board member have any comments? Terrific. Our next meeting for the PSTA Board will be held on August 28th, 2024 at 9 a.m. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned. What are you meeting, Brad?
Great job. Working with all those Zoomers.
I know.
What of the cities is going on the 16th?
I just got it a couple of days ago, still with it, trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out like how I put things in files and folders and